Yo guys! It's your friend here, bringing you another awesome Naruto What If tale. And I am back with a part 4 of What If Naruto got a herm in the DC universe. Now before we start, let's do a summary first. Transported to a world full of heroes, Naruto teams up with the greatest to stop an invasion BASED on the 2001 to 2004 and 2004 to 2006 shows Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Naruto X Haram's story name is Ninja on the League. Disclaim: Lone Wolf 1 is the author of this series. 1 just made the audio adaptation of it, and yeah, I have the permission of the author. Remember to like, subscribe after this video and make sure to share it with your friends. Now let's music begin. Watchtower Lab. Batman, who was tying on a computer, and Hog Girl, who was watching him, turned to the Brainiac piece that's in a tube as the computer beeped. Starting security check, the Tat Man said before red warning sign came up. All 6 levels are intact. Huck Girl looked to the piece before speaking up. It's hard to believe that's what's left of Brainiac. Batman stood up before turning to her. The last that we know of. Hawk Girl turned back to him. How much of him is in there? Batman turned to her and replied, too much. Brainiac's a virus that won't die. There's a saying about keeping your enemies close. The Tat Man walked up to the tube and continued, but there are times when I want to throw Brainiac down the nearest black hole. Suddenly an alarm went off and Flash sped in. You need to come into the control room. They ran into the room where Naruto and John were working on the computers. Naruto looked over his shoulder at them. The computer's picking up something big, he said before they saw a purple stream coming to them. There, it's a cosmic super strength. It packs more power than a solar flare, Hawk Girl said before turning to Jean. Get the shields up. Pressing a button, Naruto saw a red glow over the windows as they were hit, shaking the tower as it passed. Everyone stood up. Naruto shook his head. Everyone all right? Everyone nodded before Jean spoke up. Our core's energies drained. Batman looked over to him. What about backup? Hawk Girl flew up to another computer as Flash dashed away a little, but not enough to keep his running. Flash came back to them and shrugged. Checked all the rooms, nothing's damaged. Naruto sighed before pointing out the window. Well, we are flying towards Earth. Looking out, they saw the Earth getting close. Getting Flash to speak up. I could run around the power cord and supercharge it. Batman soon interrupted him. No, you could overcharge it and damage the core, but there is someone who could. He walked over to the computer and brought up a picture of Static Dakota. Static with another teen boy in a green-purple trimmed costume with a metal backpack, purple helmet with a green visor over his face with another inside that dark green only coming down over his eyes, was facing a person that looks like an armadillo. One tall muscular man with purple skin, a girl with dark skin and hair and buns, and a boy with red hair, cargo pants and red shirt. The girl smirked at them before speaking up. How do you like my new boy group? Static, I call them the Meta Men. The red-haired teen hands lit up in fire as he pointed to the heroes. You barely beat us alone, but now you can't beat us together. The girls as LEGs turned into smoke and she flew over to them only to get pushed back by a red tornado. Everyone started as Flash stopped and looked to her. Anyone tell you have an odor problem, girly? The girl growled and ran to him only for Flash to quickly spin his arm and send her flying into a building. The armored Illo turned into a ball but was hit into the muscular man by Hog Girl. The fire team lit up, but an arrow and a batang went to him and exploded in foam. Naruto flashed behind him and knocked him out with a chop to the neck. The other teen looked ecstatic. Whoa, how come you didn't tell me you were down with these big dogs? Static looked at him before replying, because it's a secret gear, so secret I didn't even know. He flowed down and walked up to Batman and Cage. Batman, Cage, what are you doing here? Don't you have a galaxy to save? Naruto walked up to Static and crossed his arms. Well, Static, we need your help in the watchtower. Static's eyes widened before pointing up. You mean that one gear floated down on his rocket shoes? Oh, can I come? Girl just stared at him. This isn't a field trip, you know, dear. Puts his hands together and pleaded, please, oh please, I'll stay in a corner. Batman walked over to them. ND stared at Gear. He can come, we don't have a lot of time. Gear walked past Hawk Girl, who stared at him. You heard the man, Gear said as Naruto walked to Hawk Girl. I don't blame him for wanting to come, especially with someone as beautiful as you. She rolled her eyes before following after the others. Calm Eon Loverboy Watchtower. Both Static and Gear looked in awe as they walked in the main room. Whoa, they said at once before Gear walked to a computer. I'm in geek heaven. A multiphase monitor ing system. Gene soon phased through up to his chest. I prepared the core for Static. Static turned over to Batman and raised an eyebrow. What's going on? Batman explained they were hit by a cosmic super strength and needed him to recharge the tower. As they walked to the control room passing the lab, as they passed the computer they never saw a blurred green face come up on screen. They made it to the control room. Here Gene had a small door open on the core. Here's where you can recharge the core. Static's shoulder dropped as he sighed. Some adventure. I feel like a big double a battery. Naruto walked over to him and spoke up. Well, you can think of it as saving millions of people by keeping this tower from crashing into Earth. Static coughed, rolled his sleeves and puts his sunglasses on. Yeah, better get right to it then. As he was recharging, Gear tried to touch a computer. Hey, remember your promise of staying in the corner. Gear turned around and saw Hawk Girl with her hands on her waist, but Hawk Girl glared and pointed to a corner. In the corner, a depressed Gear walked over as Naruto went to Hawk Girl. You'll be a great mother. Hawk Girl looked at him and blinked. Naruto smiled at her and continued, you won't be afraid to say no like other parents. Hawk Girl had turned around, glad that her mask hid the blush on her face as they walked to a computer. Seeing power coming back. Power's coming back on. I'll put us back in orbit, Hawk Girl said as they felt the tower move. We're stable, she said. His Gear pulls out a camera and was engulfed in green energy. Naruto turned and saw Green Lantern beside Gear as Flash sped over. He's Sparky's friend. Green Lantern dropped him and walked over. No pictures. Okay, Static. Green Lantern can take it from here, Batman said. His Static stopped and walked over. Good, I feel like a grilled patty. Gear ran over to Static and grabbed his shoulders. We don't have to go now, do we? I only saw one corner. Suddenly an alarm rang and Johan kneeled down near Batman and Hawk Girl. It's a distress call from Nervous 2. An asteroid is going to collide with their planet. Hawk Girl looked up to the others. This will take all of us. Flash shrugged as he stood up. There goes the afternoon movie. Hawk Girl grabbed her mace and looked to the two teens. What about them? She asked as Batman looked to her. The station's not fully charged. They should stay just in case. Naruto shrugged before speaking up. I'll stay and make sure they don't go into any rooms they're not supposed to. Later, the three heroes Air eating pizza as they looked at the Earth. Gear without his helmet and wearing glasses, who gave his name of Richie, spoke up. Pizza in the Watchtower, what could be better? Naruto chuckled as he took his hood off and hung his glasses on his vest. I can think of a couple. Static looked to him before Ding up. I bet with you dating 4 women, man, I must have burned 1,000 calories recharging. He went to the microwave and looked to a TV and stopped, seeing a blurred face come up for a second. Did you see that? The other two looked up to him before Naruto spoke up. What? Static looked back to them and pointed to the TV. There was a face on the screen. Naruto shrugged before speaking up. I don't know, maybe it's on the fritz from the outage. Static looked to the TV screen for a moment. Maybe. Suddenly an alarm went off and a door on the other side opened up, sucking the air out. Naruto added chakra to his feet as he shot an arrow to the wall with rope attached to it and hooked it to his bow. Okay, maybe in hindsight only a door to the outside without a room was a bad idea, he said, holding his bow as Static tried shocking the door close. Naruto looked around and saw the big fridge. Static hit the fridge. Static hit it, having to go to the door. Okay, that won't hold. Go, Naruto yelled as they ran to the front door, and Naruto hit the close button only for nothing to happen. Damn it, he yelled before Richie looked to a screen on the wall. Maybe I can override it. A wire came out of his backpack and hooked to the screen. A second later the door finally closed. Static panted for a moment before speaking up. What was that? Naruto shrugged before looking to Gear. I'll take you to the computer room, maybe you can find out what happened later. Gear was typing on a computer. It seems like there's a virus. Static looked to him as a cleaning robot came in. Can you isolate it? Gear shrugged before he resumed typing. I can try. Suddenly Brainiac came on the screen. Brainiac, the two teens to him who Nar sighed before he explained he's a computer that was from Superman's home planet Krypton. He didn't tell them that their planet was in danger or they would still be alive. Now he travels the universe getting everything he can from a planet before destroying it. He must have hacked our computer when we got hit earlier. Brainiac looked to them and explained he faked the alarm earlier and is planning to use the Watchtower to destroy T. Naruto then heard something, turned around and saw the robot attack with a blade on its hand. He jumped over the robot and kicked it into the computer before going through hand signs and slammed his hand on it. DPOA telegram flash lightning covered the robot before it fell down. Okay, that work. Naruto said before looking to gear. Don't use any EMPs, it may damage the tower since it's not fully charged yet. Suddenly wires wrapped around them as a giant robot came out. Deer glanced back to his backpack. A little help. The backpack puts a wire out and used a laser to cut the wires. Them Static got up and shot lightning at the robot as Naruto picked up an arrow with a tag on it and shot it at the robot, exploding the top half. Let's go. They ran to the main room and Naruto turned and locked the door as Gear puts backpack on the computer and pulls up a blurred video of the other. The distress call is fake. I repeat, the distress call is fake. Brainiac is in the tower. Static, look out, he yelled as a wire tried to wrap around Static. As Naruto was pulling the wire off, he saw what looked like a boom tube open outside and the javelin flew out. Static, Gear cage. Do you read the HEA? Rode Batman's voice over the handheld radio in Static's code. Static pulled it out and started running. We've been better, he yelled out as he saw Green Lantern, Hawk Girl and John fly out. You need to get to the core and drain the power. They ran to the core and saw an image of Brainiac and lightning come. It is inevitable. I have one. Deer looked to a screen and hooked backpack and started playing music. Static looked to him as he started draining the power. Now is not the time to play music. Gear smirked before replying, yes it is. I'm making Brainiac download too many things and crash like a computer. If you do too many things at once, soon. Brainiac disappeared and the lights dimmed for a second. John phased through the wall and walked to them, smiling. Dakota at an abandoned gas station. The League was talking to Static and Gear before Hawk Girl walked forward. You two did all right. Static shrugged before speaking up. All in a day's work. Jan stared at them before speaking up. Don't make light of your accomplishments. Flash ruffled their hair or helmet in Gear's case and smiled. Yeah, you two really saved the day. Static looked to him and smiled himself. When I'm looking for a summer job, can I put that on my resume? Hawk Girl spoke up after a moment. We better get back, there's still work to do. Gear spoke up before they left. Oh come on, one picture so I can convince myself this wasn't a dream. The others looked to each other as Hawk Girl rolled her eyes. Okay, maybe just one. They all got together as Gear puts his backpack on the ground and it walked a few feet ahead. Naruto, who was standing beside Hawk Girl on the end, wrapped his arm around her shoulders and smiled. Later on, Richie was getting ready to go home and was shutting down his computer before walking to backpack. Time to shut you. He stopped at backpack. Jumped on him, making him scream. A few days later at the watchtower, everyone was putting things away as Flash looked to a computer. Hey, am I missing something? The computer says that there was a big download from a hard drive. Batman walked over and typed on it. You're right, and it happened when we beat Brainiac. Naruto walked over and rubbed his chin and thought, well, what did we miss? We cleaned everything. Green Lantern walked up to them and pointed to his back. Well, what about that kid with Static who had that computer on his back? HWK Girl turned to him and raised an eyebrow. You mean Gear be at me? Looked down for a second before speaking up. We should check him out. Flash nodded before dashing away. That man crossed his arms as Naruto counted down 3, 2, 1. Flash came back rubbing his head. How do I find him? I don't know what he looks like. Naruto brought up a video of him, Static and Gear eating pizza. That's him, but maybe look for Static if he's on patrol. If you can't find him. Flash nodded and dashed away. Dakota Flash dashed around the town before finding Richie on a motorized scooter. Hey, I need to talk to you. They went to an alley where Richie looked up to him. What do you want? He asked harshly as Flash shrugged. Need to see your backpack. We think Brainiac has used it to escape. Richie took him to the station where they looked around. Where is it? Flash asked before backpack jumped on him and wrapped his legs with wire. Later, Static was looking around the station before feeling a hand on his shoulder. He turned and saw Batman and the League walking in behind him. Easy, we're only looking for Fly. He came here hours ago looking for your friend, Batman explained as Static pulled out a small walkie-talkie. Gear, you read me? The Justice League is looking for you. After a moment, Gear spoke up. I'm here at the old steel mill, you all can come. Static looks to Batman, who nodded. Later they walked inside and saw some cut metal on the floor. Naruto sighed before speaking up. I have a bad feeling about this. They walked inside and Static looked up to the ceiling. Let's light it up. He hits the lights. Electricity turning them on, revealing a huge device. Green Lantern sighed before speaking up. There's no way one kid could do this. Suddenly Flash stopped in front of them. Hey guys, who? Girl looked to him before speaking up. Where have you been? Flash shrugged before replying with the kid and his compet. He suddenly dashed and put small circular devices on their chests. Back for hot girl. Red chakra surrounded Naruto, burning the device off as electricity took Statics off him. Everyone connected? Flash asked as the League straightened up, awaiting orders. Brainiac, they said together as Naruto got Ray. I knew it. Brainiac come out. Suddenly Richie came out of the shadows with metal on his face and green eyes. Let them go. Brainiac, no. Justice League, destroy them. The heroes walked to them as Naruto cursed. Crap, get out of here. Static tried to take them down without hurting them or a way to get those ices off. He shot a Haitian flying thunder god arrow out and flashed outside. He landed down on another roof before seeing Flash dash to him. Sorry about this, he said before cloths lining Flash. He quickly knocked him out before dodging a green blast. You won't beat me that easily, Green Lantern said as Naruto created a Renin spiraling sphere, hits him in the chest, destroying the device and sending Green Lantern through the roof. He looked up and saw Static shocking both Hawkgirl and Batman, destroying their devices. He ran to Flash, went through hand signs and touched Flash. DPOC telegram. Flash Statty C flew over as Jean phased through in front of Static. You can't touch me. Static smirked before pushing his hand through and destroyed his device. Don't need to. Later they were talking as Jean told them. Richie kept repeating, control. Is there any way to save Richie? Static asked as Naruto reached in his quiver and pulled an arrow with a blue glowing tip. I started making EMP arrows since we last fought him. Figure it would stop him long enough to take him apart. Nodding all but Static left to the building as it exploded with a large Brainiac head coming out and it started vaporizing buildings. Let's go. They got in the javelin. His Static ran on. Green Lantern stopped him but Naruto spoke up. Let him come. Like I said, I've got EMPs but we can still use the help. They caught up to the head and it vaporized the javelin, having Green Lantern shield them. They went through an eye before looking around for ENIAC. They found him in a new body typing on a computer. Naruto shot an arrow at him but he caught it and wrapped everyone in wires. You cannot stop the inevitable, Brainiac said as Naruto just smirked as the arrow beeped and a burst of air came from it, shutting down every electronic. Naruto sighed before unsealing a new pair of glasses and hit the button on the side. Richie's inside him. Naruto walked around placing bombs around the room before seeing backpack on Brainiac's back. As the others left, Naruto took backpack and ran out. As he took out a remote, pressed a button and having the bombs blow up behind him. Later Jean's eyes glowed as he looked through Richie's mind as Hayat girl scanned backpack. I see no sign of Brainiac in him. He's fine. Static walked over to them and spoke up. Hey, can you see what he did with me? Lil Romeo CD. Jean looked at him as he took his hands off Richie. He gave it back to you last month. Richie sat up and grinned. Told you? He looked to Hawkgirl, who stopped working on backpack as backpack. Hawkgirl smiled at him. Don't worry, we're just wiping out any traces of Brainiac from his system. Batman nodded before continuing. Yes, you'll need to reprogram him though, but he'll be fine. Richie sighed before speaking up. Thanks guys for saving me. Naruto shrugged before speaking up. No problem, it's what we do. You rookies did all right. You'll define when you join the League. One Green Lantern said as the teens looked surprised. Did you say when we join? Batman handed backpack to Richie. ND smirked. Anything's possible when you're older. The heroes left, leaving Static and Geared to smile as they fist bumped Naruto's home. Morning. Naruto was cooking breakfast before hearing footsteps coming towards the kitchen. He turned to see Diana with messy hair, wearing nothing but a baggy white sheer tea. Morning. Naruto greeted as she sat down. Morning Naruto. He puts a plate of pancakes down and kissed her cheek. Cheetah walked down stretching in a tank top and podge pants. His hunter ran in and sat down. Naruto petted his head before hearing Car's voice. Naruto. He walked out to the hall and saw Kara looking Gee, at a grandfather clock in his hall. When did you get this? Naruto smiled before pulling the pendulum down. The clock moved, showing a tube behind it. Bruce is currently working on a teleporter for the watchtower and is using my place to test it out. A few days later, Metropolis at night. Hayat girl was Cha. Said Lex in his metal suit as he fired lasers at her. She blocked them with her mace, attacked him but was hit and fell onto a dock. He aimed at her again only for Superman to block it. Superman walked a couple of steps before hitting the beam back and sending Lex to a box. I didn't need help, Hawkgirl L said as Superman looked over his shoulder and smirked. You're welcome. He flew to Lex, who flew up and shot beams at him. Superman blocked them and used his heat vision, hitting him in his chest. Lex grunted before hitting Superman in his chest, sending him down. A Hawkgirl threw her mace, hitting Lex in his shoulder, damaging the suit, causing Lex to flee with them. Following, he turned and shot at a cruise ship, causing it to sink. Let and go, Superman yelled, flying to the ship as Hawkgirl looked to Lex. He won't get far. She followed after Superman, leaving Lex to escape. Lex Scorp then fire them. In fact, get rid of the whole division. A woman with brown hair yelled into a cell phone while walking out of an elevator. She's wearing a dark gray business shirt with a skirt, stockings and black heels, holding a PDA in her right hand. I don't care how Lex would have done. I'm running things now, she said, walking into her office and dropped the phone and PDA as she saw Lex leaning on a desk. Mercy, he said before dropping to his knees. He got back up and took a few steps over to her. Help me, he fell to the floor as she walked over, crossed her arms and smirked. He looked up to her, sweating. I'm she interrupted him as he fell back down, sick, dying. And you couldn't do it somewhere else, she asked with a frown as he groaned. After all I've done for you, Mercy snorted before looking back down at him. You mean letting me, a lowly chauffeur, run your company while you wear away, she asked, throwing her arms in the air. ND continued, I'm flattered, but then I remembered you have no one else to trust to give it back. She threw her arms down and glared at him. Only me, your loyal dog, Lex panted as she ranted at him. Well, let me tell you something, this dog has taken the hole you dug Lex Scorp into and brought the stock up 38% all on her own, she said, raising her hand up before pointing at him. So if you think I'm ever going to let you. She stopped as Lex grabbed her throat and squeezed. Looks like there's life in the old suit after all, Lex said with a smirk as Mercy tried to pry his hand off of her. Now where is Professor Evo? She gritted her teeth before answering. I fired him. Lex's eyes widened before squeezing harder, bringing Mercy to her knees. What, he was our best scientist. Why did you fire him? To save money. He was too expensive. He's probably in his place on Mountain View. Lex smiled, bringing her face to him. Good girl, he said, letting go, standing up and leaving with Jean. Superman, Hawkgirl, Batman, Supergirl and Naruto. Hawkgirl was bringing the last person over to the dock as Supergirl helped Superman fix the ship they flew over as Naruto was meditating as orange pigmentation was forming around his eyes. Crap, his is harder to do in a city, Naruto thought as Superman was talking to Jean about doing a mental sweep in the city to look for Lex. I'm not picking him up anywhere in the city, but my sage mode's not as strong as it usually is since I didn't leave a clone at my house to gather natural chakra. He saw it before standing up and was tackled by a yellow and black blur. He looked at Cheetah in a black tank top and shorts, smiling at him as her tail wagged. Hey honey, she said, leaning down, kissing him. Naruto smiled in the kiss before getting up. Hey yourself, he said as they ended the kiss and got back up. Mountain View. Lex landed in front of a mansion and pounded on the door that opened for him. Evo, where are you? He looked around until he saw a bed with someone under the covers. Get it up, Evo. I nay. He stopped as a hand fell out of the covers. So your sickness finally got you, he said before grunting in grabbing his right shoulder. I think mine will get me also. Suddenly a shadow came over him and he turned around and gasped. Standing behind him was a 10-foot android with gray silver skin in the form of a man with no characteristic but red eyes. Well, what are you waiting for? I'll be dead soon enough already, Lex said before the android knelt and put Io's arms back under the bed sheets. The android looked to Lex and his eyes lit up for a moment before its face morphed into Lex's for a second before returning to normal. Later, Lex was working on his suit as the android looked out the window. Lex Ached up for a box but held his side in pain. Little help, he asked the android side. When will Professor Evo wake up? The android asked as Lex held his side. Never. The android turned around and looked back to him, but he has to. Lex walked up to him and puts a hand on his shoulder. You miss him? So do I. He was my best friend. The android looked down to him for a second before replying. Really? Lex nodded and continued. Yes, and he wanted me to look out for you should anything happen to him. The android looked to Evo before turning back to him. So you're going to take care of me? Yes, but you'll have to take care of me too, otherwise I'll go to sleep and never wake up. The android walked up and grabbed the box Lex was reaching for. Thank you. Now there's one other thing I need. Fuel. Metropolis power plant at night. The android dropped down and climbed the electric chained link fence and walked to the door as two guards pointed their guns at him. Get back, they shot at him, having him throw them away, knocking them out. He banged on the door but it didn't move. Looking down he saw a hand scanner. Looks back, scans one of the guard's fingers and used the hand scanner by making his hand smaller. Walking in he attacked the guards before going down several floors and picked up a canister. He ran back out and climbed over the fence where Hawkgirl, Supergirl and Cheetah dropped down in front of him. Hold it, big boy. The android ran, having Hawkgirl fly after and hits his feet with her mace. Cheetah dashed over on all fours before picking it up. Why do you need this? She asked as the android scanned her and a tail grew on him. Cheetah's eyes widened before he dashed over and kicked her. He looked back and scanned Hawkgirl and grew wings and a mace materialized in his hand. With a war cry similar to her he flew over a ND hits her to a wall before Supergirl flew in between them. He scanned her and a shield came up on his chest before flying over and hits her through the building. Cheetah jumped up on him before he threw her into Hawkgirl, who was getting up. Hearing something he turned around and saw guards picking tea. He canister up. He dashed over and knocked them away before grabbing the canister and flying away. Later he flew back to Io's mansion and saw Lex looking at his blueprints with Amazo on them. He looked to the now identified Amazo and smiled as he took the canister before seeing the shield on his chest. Did you run into Superman? Amazo shook his head before replying. No. A teenage girl with blonde hair, a woman with wings and one with cat features. Are they still alive? Amazo nodded before replying yes. Lex sighed before telling Amazo a story about the Justice League being the bad guys: Naruto, Batman and Superman. LexCorp, he's the most deeply twisted man I know. Of course I'll help you, Mercy said, sitting at her desk as Batman took out a communicator. As they talked, Naruto looked to her neck and noticed faint bruising. Has he contacted you? Superman asked as Mercy shook her head. Don't you think I would, Vey told you? She asked as Batman spoke up. The two of you were very close. I'm a different person now. Batman stared at her for a second before he and Superman left. As Naruto glanced back, I'll meet up with you later. He looked back to Mercy and she raised an eyebrow. What? Naruto sighed before speaking up. I know he's contacted you. Mercy eyes widened before she raised her hands. What are you talking? Naruto interrupted her by reaching over and touched her bruise. These are new. Her bruise healed as he continued. You know, sometimes you remind me of Harley. Her eyes widened again before they narrowed. I'm Noth. Like that demented sidekick. Naruto raised an eyebrow at her. Really? Because you two go right back to the person that abuses you, you being mentally and Harley physically. See, there's one thing that you should know about LAX. He needs you more than you need him. He finished walking out as Mercy looked to the phone. Hawkgirl, Supergirl, Cheetah, Wonder Woman and Flash on top of a building. Wonder Woman just bandaged up the three heroines as Hawkgirl explained what happened. He scanned us and got our powers and personality. Flash stiffened slightly at that as Wonder Woman spoke up. Whoever made it certain Lee is dangerous. She walked over to the edge. This android, is it about 10 feet tall with gray silver skin? The three heroines nodded as HW Girl walked over. Yeah, how did you know? Wonder Woman pointed down where they saw Amazo on a screen on a building attacking police. Wonder Woman flew over and wrapped her lasso around Mao's wrist. Wonder Woman no, Flash said as Amazo scanned her and pulled on the lasso. Wonder Woman grunted as she tried to keep Amazo from pulling her. Suddenly a green energy beam hits Amazo, sending him flying to the other end. He looked up, saw Green Lantern and scanned him as a gray formed on his right hand. As the others came over, he shot at Tim with his ring, sending them to head of billboard and having it fall on them. Flash got up and stared at Amazo for a second before speeding over. Amazo made a ramp that caused him to fly into a wall. Amazo picked him up and scanned him. He heard a scream and turned to see Hawk Girl and Supergirl fly to him. He quickly dashed around them before crossing his arms. Didn't see that one coming, did you? He asked before Green Lantern hits him with his ring, making him fall. Cheetah ran to the side and started climbing on the building before HEA. Ring. Green Lantern speak up. No way, if he copies you two we'll have no chance of winning. Suddenly a red blur hits Amazo as Naruto flashed beside her. So what did I miss? He asked before Amazo hits Superman and scans him. Crap. Cheetah smirked before dashing over to help. Amazo dodged her strike before owing her away. Renan spiraling sphere. Amazo was then hit by Naruto, who sent him into a wall. Naruto panted before dashing over, only to get hit up in the air and caught by Amazo. He looked at him and scanned him. No. Supergirl whispered as Amazo's skin started to turn gold black, tribal-like markings slowly snaked its way throughout the body with whisker lines forming on to his face. He moved an arm back and created a Renan spiraling sphere and hits Naruto with it. Naruto hissed as he held his stomach, watching the others try to fight Amazo. He's like a Sharingan, except he can literally take anything. Naruto nodded before slowly getting up and picked an arrow with a blue glowing tip. He shot it at Amazo, who stopped for a moment as Flash walked to him. Did he win? Suddenly Amazo, who flew up with Superman and Supergirl following, hit him. They attacked each other with punches, eventually going to a rooftop where Batman was standing. He looked to the two before speaking up. Stay back, I'll handle it. Supergirl tried to fly down, only for Superman to stop her. That man reached into his belt and picked up kryptonite. Amazo groaned before crawling away. It's a package deal. You get our strengths, but you also get our weaknesses. Lamazo jumped over the ledge and fell into the sewer. Hawk Girl dropped down beside Batman and raised an eyebrow. You always carry kryptonite with you? Batman pocketed it before turning to her. Call it insurance. They dropped down to check the area for Amazo. Later everyone stopped looking around the area. After a few minutes, anything? Naruto asked as everyone shook their heads. Superman and Supergirl flew down as she gave their reports. Nothing. Downriver. Batman signed before speaking up. And we still need to find Lex. They nodded before splitting up with Superman. Green Lantern. Naruto and Flash going to Professor Io's house, leaving the others alone as Wonder Woman looked for Jean. Later when they got to the house, a small explosion sets it on fire and Flash got everything he could out as the others puts out the fire with Amazo. Amazo was flying around the city before seeing a bald talking on a pay phone. He landed down and looked at him, thinking he was Lex. When he saw he wasn't, he was about to fly off until he suddenly smelled something. Curiosity got the better of him and he flew across the street in a small building where someone was getting a bowl of ramen. He tapped the on the shoulder, who screamed as soon as he saw him, and everyone ran outside. Amazo looked to the bowl, examining it before lifting it up and having the noodles go in a mouth he made. He soon flew up, looking around before hearing Lex yell. He flew to a storage facility where he made a hole in a unit and saw Mercy with Lex, who started shooting him with a pistol. He used his heat ray on it as Lex walked up. Wait, she's okay? He dashed over and looked her over. Sheck, more than okay? She raised an eyebrow at him. What? Lex smiled as he walked over. Don't worry, it must have been something he picked up. Did you kill the Justice League? Amazo shook his head. No. Lex frowned before pointing outside. Then go and finish the job. Amazo looked down to him for a second. Why? Because I said so. Amazo shook his head before replying, that's not good enough. Lex sighed before turning around. Okay, I guess I'll take them on my own. He stopped as he grabbed his chest in pain and leaned on the desk. Amazo puts his hands on Lex's shoulder. Okay, I'll go after them. As he flew away, Mercy looked at Lex with a frown. Are you crazy? He'll kill you for messing with him. Lex smirked, but before pulling out a button and explained that Evo Insta LLED, a kill switch in Mao's head in case he went rogue with Naruto. Flash, Green Lantern and Superman. Flash looked around the house before seeing Io's hand in a dirt pile. Hey guys, Superman and Naruto walked over to him. Think this is Evo? Naruto scanned his hand. Yeah, it's him, but it says he just died from a disease he had. Green Lantern walked over and handed them everything on Amazo and explained he had nanotechnology in him. Evo made it to where he'll evolve into what? Superman asked before hearing Batman over their earpieces. The androids downtown. I'll be using the kryptonite again, so Tay back they flew or ran in flash case and saw Amazo grab the kryptonite before throwing it at Superman, having it crush into dust and caused Superman to fall. Flash dashed over and fanned it off of him with his hands. They all content to attack him with Green Lantern creating a shield. Suddenly Lex act Green Lantern with his beams, having Namazo hit him. Wonder Woman and Flash. Lex grabbed Wonder Woman and shocked her before Amazo took out the rest. Suddenly Jean flew down. Wait, Amazo scanned him and had his face morphed into Jean's and returning to normal before looking to Lex, who walked over. Are you waiting for? You have all of their powers. Jean looked to Amazo before speaking up. Use them wisely. Amazo eyes glowed before turning to Lex, making him walk back. So you lied to me. It was all a lie. Lex shook his head. I read your mind. Lex stopped and pulled the kill switch button and press D at having Amazo head explode after falling to his knees. Amao's head slowly grew back and he stood up. Lex flew but was caught by Azio's rain, who pulled him back and started to tear his suit apart until only his chest plate was left on. Wait, no please. Amazo stopped as he looked down at him. So small. All of you, he said before looking to the sky. His eyes glowed before his skin became golden and glowed. He flew off, leaving the others to stare. Where's he going to go? Flash asked as Jan looked at him. Maybe where gods go. They heard Lex scoff and turned to him. Please, he may be powerful but he's no goddess. Superman lifted him up and glared at him. Then why do I get the feeling that if he comes back you'll be doing a lot of praying? John sighed before speaking up. Maybe we all will. A few days later, Lex Scorp. Mercy was looking out at the city before the phone rang. She answered it and Lex spoke up. They're on Lee giving me one phone call. I'll need the best lawyers and doc. She hung up on him before hearing a voice behind her. I'm proud of you. She turned and saw Naruto on the balcony. What do you want? Naruto shrugged before speaking up. Just seeing if you would go back to him or become your own person. He smiled before standing up. Now if only Harley could do the same. He back flipped off and ran down the building before getting onto his motorcycle and leaving Mercy to watch him ride off. Dakota, Virgil and Richie on a school bus. Virgil and Richie were sitting in a school bus of their teacher, a female with blonde hair tied back. She's wearing a blue shirt and red skirt with black high heels, choker and glasses. She's giving a lecture as they drove through the woods. The reason for this trip is to see Dakota's natural flora and fauna. Can anyone tell me what they are? A teen girl with black hair wearing a red t-shirt with a flower on front and jeans raised her hand. Yes, Daisy. Daisy smiled and explained flora as plants while fauna as animals. She continued naming off the different animals and plants as Richie leaned over and whispered, there's another fauna teacher's pet. Virgil looked to him before noticing something outside Richie. Are there any giant monkeys in this part of Dakota? Richie looked over and widened his eyes. Reason being, there's a giant toy monkey with symbols jumping in the woods. It jumped out in the road before jumping in front of the bus and stopping it. Everyone out, the teacher yelled as everyone but Richie and Virgil brought out their book bag. A minute later, Static and Gear flew out and attacked the monkey. Keep your paws to yourself, you big ape. Gear flew up his Static attack with his electricity and threw a ball that had wires wrap around his head. The monkey hits Gear, sending him to the ground before Static attacked again. If you want to fight, come on. He flew in the woods as the monkey followed. Static continued attacking before getting knocked off and the tail wrap around him. Anyone want to help a young handsome superhero? Now's the time. Suddenly an arrow hits the monkey's mouth and exploded with two blurs going to the symbols and tail. Need a hand getting this monkey off your back. Static looked behind him and saw Superman pushing the symbols open as Supergirl used her heat vision to cut the tail off. Naruto ran up and shot more arrows at the head, taking of the fur, revealing the metal underneath. Static shot it again once he was freed, sending it back before Supergirl flew over and took its head off. Well, I guess he's getting lazy with his building. It's usually harder to beat them, she said before landing beside Naruto. Thanks guys, Static said before noticing Gear holding his left leg. Gear, you all right bro? Static asked as Gear shook his head. No, my one chance to team with the Justice League and I missed it because I bust my ankle. Superman looked to Gear's ankle and his eyes glowed white. Nothing's broken, he just looks like a sprain. Naruto knelt and Puts his hand on Gear's sprain there, that should do it. Wow, I just got my ankle x-rayed and fixed by Superman and Cage, I'll never wash it again. Naruto raised an eyebrow before Supergirl elbowed him. Looks like someone has a crush. Naruto rolled his eyes before Superman spoke up. Well, we got to go stay AFE. He and Supergirl, who picked up Naruto, flew off his static and Gear stared at them. Later Virgil and Richie was walking outside their school as Daisy yelled out to them, Virgil, Richie. They looked over and saw Clark in a gray suit, Naruto in jeans, black shirt with a camera, and Kara in black jeans, red shirt with brown hair and glasses. This is Clark Kent, his cousin Kara Kent, and Naruto Uzumaki. They with the Daily Planet. Virgil and Richie stared at Naruto for a moment before looking to Clark. His eyes widened before opening his mouth. Hey here. Naruto quickly closed his mouth before smiling nervously. That famous reporter that you've heard about, right? He asked as Richie and Virgil nodded. Why did you cover his mouth? Daisy asked as Naruto rubbed the back of his head so he wouldn't get a crowd. Famous reporter, remember? Virgil smiled nervously before speaking up. My dad reads your articles all the time. Richie spoke up after Veer. First Superman, Supergirl, and Cage show up. Now you three. Is this Metropolis week in Dakota? The three stared at him for a second before smiling. No, they're the reason we're here, Clark said before another girl spoke up. They're writing an article about the fight the League had. That giant monkey. Well, I guess they did help Static out a little, Virgil said as Clark brought out a pad and smiled. So you two saw the fight? Richie and Virgil looked to each other before talking over each other, trying to come up with an excuse. Can I quote you two on that? Clark asked with a smirk. Mr. Kent, if you want someone who did see the fight, talk to Miss Moore, Daisy said, pointing behind them. Clark looked behind him to see Ms. Moore walking in an empty building. She saw him, widened her eyes and quickly went inside. That's strange, Daisy commented before Nar spoke up. Maybe she likes you, Clark. Lark stared at the build for a second before the bell rung. Well, we've got to get to class, Clark. Naruto and Kara left to the building where Miss Moore was walking to a desk. Thought I saw you ducking in here, Darcy. Darcy took off her glasses before bringing a hand up to her cheek. Do you mind, Kent? I need some privacy to put on my face, she said, peeling off her skin, showing an android's face. Naruto looked on, jaw dropped. What the hell? Kara, remembering her now, turned to Naruto and explained that Darcy was an android given free will by her creator Toyin, and she escaped him. Superman didn't find her afterwards. I guess she came here. Naruto still stared dumbfounded as Darcy removed her left eye, tightened a screw and puts it back before putting her face back on. They suddenly felt the ground shake a little as Clark and Kara looked outside. Something wrong? Darcy asked as Clark turned to her. Nothing. Stay air outside. A giant toy clown with spring limbs jumped to the school, causing the teens to run. It pulled the roof of a classroom and reached in for Daisy, who ran. An arrow was shot at it and exploded. Looking to its right, the clown saw Naruto. Static here, Supergirl and Superman. Well, that's new, Supergirl said before flying to the clown, which opened up and 6 more jumped out, each smaller than the last. Naruto created 10 clones and each create a Renan spiraling sphere. They jumped up in the air and came down on all but one clown, Rosen Cho Duran. Ultra many spiraling serial spheres. The dust cleared reveille. Broken clown and Naruto panting. Everyone okay? He asked. A Static nodded yes, but one got away with a student. Superman's eyes widened before speaking up. A student, but I thought he was after he flew off. As the others followed, when they caught up they saw Superman floating in an empty classroom. She's gone. Static and Gear looked to him, who Superman looked back and explained. Miss Moore, do you know where she lives? No, but there should be a file on her in the office. Superman nodded. Okay, take me there, I'll explain on the way. Later they made their way to Darcy's apartment and Superman explained about Oyman and Darcy. So she's an android? Static asked as Superman nodded as they looked around. Yes, and Toyman's obsessed with her. If we find him, we'll find Daisy. They looked around and Static found a locked door. Wonder what's behind door number 1. He shocked it and they went inside. Holy crap, that's a low of parts, Naruto said, seeing the android parts scattered around the room. Abandoned mannequin factory. Earlier, Daisy groaned as she woke up strapped to a gunny that's connected to a giant toy oven. She looked to her left and saw 2 more gurney, one with a lump of clay that's shaped like a human. Oh goo. Die Miss Daisy's awake. Daisy looked ahead and saw a short man wearing a sweater vest over a white button-up shirt, red bow tie, gray pants and shoes, with a smiling man-looking porcelain mask covering his entire head. Who what are you? Daisy asked as the man walked forward. I'm Toyman and I'm so happy to meet you. Daisy tried getting free but had no luck. Let me go. Toyin shook his head and explained about Darcy as Darcy walked up beside him. There more, tell him to let me go. Darcy shook her head. No can do, I told him to bring you. They went on to explain how they're going to make an exact replica of her. ND Darcy will take over her life. Darcy laid down on the far gurney and they went in. Outside, Naruto dropped down and noticed a shadow moving. Superman, Supergirl, Static, go inside. Gear and I will catch up. Gear dropped down beside Naruto as the others went inside. What's wrong? Naruto aimed an arrow at AS head and yelled out, okay, come on out. A person walked out, causing Naruto to widen his eyes. Metallo takes the appearance of a blonde-haired man with the right side of his head down to his waist is gone, revealing his android body with kryptonite in his chest. Who? Gear asked as Naruto explained he was a mercenary that after doing a job for Lex was caught and found out he had a rare fatal illness. After that, Lex gave him the option of putting his brain in an android powered by a chunk of kryptonite. Naruto shot a smoke arrow at him before dashing forward and kicked him after adding chakra to his EG's Gear threw several ropes at him that Metallo broke with his strength. Renan spiraling sphere. Naruto hits him in the back, sending him flying into the stone fence. Is that all you got? Metallo asked before running over and punched Naruto, having him cough a little blood. Gear threw another metallic rope round Metallo, having Naruto hit him with a bigger Renan spiraling sphere. Odama Renan big ball spiraling sphere. Metallo was sent flying into the fence and through another abandoned building, creating a big hole and having the building fall down. Let's check on the others. They ran in and saw Superman fly into a room where Static was with two. Daisy, okay, what did I miss? Naruto asked his Supergirl side before looking to him. Darcy's trying to take over his Daisy and we're having trouble telling which one's which. Naruto raised an eyebrow before looking to Superman and Supergirl. Your X-ray can't tell the difference. They shook their heads before Supergirl spoke up. No, they're like twins, they're the same right down to their DNA. Oh, I'd like to punch this fake's block off. One, Daisy said as the other glared at her. Static snapped his fingers and smiled. I got it, every human has their own electrical aura and I can make it visible. The one that doesn't is the fake. Static created a ball that expanded around them and everyone glowed. Superman's yellow, Toyman's green, Naruto's a mix between red and orange, Supergirl's purple, Gear's blue and one Daisy's pink, while Static's is white. Stand back, Darcy said, holding a pin GPONG ball and a slingshot. What's that going to do? Static asked as Toyman spoke up. That ball packs enough energy to take out this whole block. Trust me, I made it. Darcy ran ahead only to stop and fall to her knees in pain. What? She asked as she started to melt. Toyin explained he made a fail-safe and he LD up the antidote. Yoink. Naruto grabbed it and held it out. I'll give this to you on one condition. Darcy groaned as she looked up to Naruto. Anything? Naruto knelt to her and smiled. I'm making a spy network. Why don't you join? She raised an eyebrow at him. Okay, but why tree to help me? Naruto shrugged. Giving her the antidote because even though you went a little crazy, all you wanted was our own life. Besides, I tried talking sense into worse people countless times, only worked a handful. Though he helped her up as her skin returned to normal. I'll work on a way so the nanobots can change your appearance. You won't be able to do this looking like a teenage girl. Later, the cops came and arrested Toyin as the heroes looked to each other. Thanks for saving me, Superman, Daisy said as Superman smiled. No problem, but thanks, Static. We couldn't have done it without him. Well, if you ever need a sidekick or someone to watch the Fortress of Solitude or the Watchtower, Superman smiled at Static. You two are at the top of the list. He flew off as Darcy turned to Naruto. So what do I do? Naruto turned to her and smiled. Nothing now until we work on the nanobots. For now, I'll have you stay in Florida. He looked up to see Static carrying Daisy and Gear fly off. Why did you save her? Supergirl asked as Naruto created a cone for Darcy to follow. Naruto shrugged before replying, like I said, I've tried to turn more bad guys to my side in my world, only worked few. Though she picked him up and flew after Superman into the Moonel. I'd Metropolis Prison. A man with short brown hair in a gray coverall was asleep, mumbling before being jolted awake by a guard. Your turn, John, he said as JN stood up and looked to the psychiatrist room. He walked to the door and the guard spoke up again. What's easy? The guard asked as John looked at high and raised an eyebrow. You talking in your sleep? My parole. I think I'll get it this time. The guard smiled at him before speaking up. I wouldn't bet against it. You're not like the others. You have a future. John opened the door, saw the prison doctor and a strange machine. Yeah, I've got a date with Dusty. NY, he said, smiling. Look up this episode for a better image of the machine later. After the doctor turned the machine off, he turned to JN. That's it. I don't feel any different, JN said as the doctor picked up 4 cards. You're not supposed to just let your mind go blank and tell me what comes to mind. AF. Tear. I read these cards. John closed his eyes for a moment before seeing images as the doctor looked to each card. A car, maybe a tree, a cow, a house. JN opened his eyes as the doctor showed he got every card right. Incredible. So this thing really can give people, especially the doctor sighed as he went to the controls. Only temporarily. I'm still studying for any side effects. JN looked to the machine for a moment before speaking up. Still, I like to continue to help you even after they let me out. See what this baby can really do. The doctor sighed again before turning around to face him. What it can do is fry your brain. JN shrugged before smiling. Sometimes you've got to take chances for science. They suddenly heard a knock on the door and the guard from earlier walked in with a frown. A few days later, Naruto's house. Middle of the night, Naruto groaned as his earpiece rang. He felt someone move on him. Lu head down and saw Diana with her head on his chest. He picked his earpiece up from the nightstand and whispered, "Cage here." After a second he heard Batman's voice on the other end. There's a prison break in Metropolis. Grundy, Copperhead, Luminous, Volcana, and Firefly are on the move. Naruto blinked at that. E4 carefully removing himself from Diana's grip. What's Firefly doing there? Though he mainly stayed in Gotham, he asked before Batman started explaining. He attacked Superman the other day. Naruto nodded before getting up and getting dressed in his stealth outfit. What is it? Naruto glanced back. Diana, who was rubbing her eyes only to turn back and blushed at her topless form. Prison break in the city. He heard her stand before speaking up. Go back to bed. You just got back from DC not too long ago. He heard the bed squeak before turning back and gave her a kiss. I shouldn't be too long walking out. He heard Barbara purring from her door next to his. That's cracked open. He smiled before quietly closing the door and walked downstairs, seeing Hunter run in his sleep before walking outside. Later, Naruto caught up to Batman, Green Lantern, and Batgirl, who's fighting a woman with orange hair reaching the ground. She's wearing a dark red leather outfit consisting of a sleeveless top with a hole showing her cleavage, light red gloves, boots, and shoulder bands shooting fire out of her hands. That must be Volcana, he thought before hearing a jetpack. He turned around and saw a man in a silver suit with a belt helmet with bug eyes and a small flamethrower gun using a jetpack to fly, and that must be Firefly. Vulcan's skin suddenly turned orange as fire engulfed her whole body and Firefly flew behind her. Naruto quickly grabbed his bow and shot an arrow at Volcana that exploded in white foam, drenching her powers. Batman used his grapnel gun to wrap around Firefly legs before pulling him down onto Volcana. Green Lantern created a dome around them as Volcana got up and started attacking the dome with Firefly. After a moment they suddenly grabbed their throats and fell down unconscious. Anyone else here? Yuto asked, fixing his bow back on his quiver. No, these are the only 2 here. The others are going after the other 3. That man replied as the police cuffed the 2 villains before putting them in a van made to negate their powers. Prison later. 2 down, 3 to go, Green Lantern said as they locked up Volcana and Firefly. Naruto looked to the glass pod that held Volcana as he held Batgirl by the waist. I could just give her a seal like the others, he said as Batman yawned. The warden looked over to him and raised an eyebrow. Pretty routine stuff for you, right? Batman rubbed his neck before replying, have and slept in 3 days before anything else could be said. The W.S. walkie-talkie went off. Warden D's missing. The warden's eyes widened at that. What the hell are you talking about? These catatonic. After a moment the officer replied, you'd better come to the infirmary. As they walked to the infirmary, the war Den explained they testing a machine that gives people ESP on volunteering inmates. His Batgirl deadpan, and you decided to use a machine that gives people ESP on inmates. Couldn't they use that to their advantage? She asked as the warden looked to her before turning a corner. What the hell? Naruto asked. Seeing inmates in the hall either unconscious or staring into space mumbling, they all dashed inside the room where more inmates and a guard the same way. After getting the inmates back in their beds, Batman walked back into the hall where the laundry chute is and opened it. It may be too late, but have your men check the laundry room. But what happened to everyone? Poisoning. Before anyone could reply, Green Lantern puts a hand to his ear. Go ahead, he answered before hearing Superman speak up. We've got the other three pinned down at the old Westside refinery. Green Lantern nodded before Batman spoke up. I'm staying. Green Lantern looked at him and raised an eyebrow. Why, you don't know D did this? I don't know that he didn't, Batman replied as Green Lantern scoffed. Look, whoever he is, he's a nobody. He's not in the same league as Grundy and the others. Batman man just stared at him before speaking up. Ever read the Odyssey? After Odysseus was caught by the Cyclops, he told him his name was Nobody, and when he poked his eye out and escaped, the Cyclops friends asked him who did it. All he could say was Nobody. Green Lantern signed before he spoke up. Point taken. Naruto walked up to give his 2 cents. Yeah, I've learned to never underestimate anyone. Technically, I defeated the leader of my village with one move when I was 12. You mean that move? Naruto flinched as Bad Girl spoke up, glaring at him. You weren't complaining when I showed the other version of it, he said, smirking, making Batgirl blush a little. What do you know about John D? Batman asked the warden before a guard came up. I may be able to help. Westside Refinery. Hawk Girl flew down a hall before seeing someone dash down another. Luminous. She flew after him, showing a man in a black bodysuit with orange lines and circles on it. Hold it. Luminous smiled. He looked back and held up a small device with the same design as his suit. Hold what? This? A bright light suddenly blinded her. With a war cry, she threw her mace, breaking the device, and saw Luminous was gone. Flying down the hall, she saw an open door and flew in it, and an invisible wall. Sudden a metal box came to view as it closed on her and started shrinking. A Hayat girl screamed, hitting the walls with her mace before the BX started crushing her. As it shrank, she started hyperventilating as her eyes darted around. Suddenly a hand came through the door before pulling it off the hinges. Girl walked out and saw Superman staring at her. You all right? She looked down as the box disappeared. It was Luminous. Superman nodded at her before speaking up. Don't worry about it, he's fooled others a lot worse. You okay? He asked, hearing a sniffle from her. I'm fine, she replied, walking away, making Sir Superman didn't see her as she wiped her face on the roof. Naruto dropped down with Supergirl looking around. Where could she be? Naruto asked, looking around as Supergirl looked around with her X-ray. I don't see her any. She stopped, hearing something behind her and ducked a kick to the head. Nice try. She saw it looking over her shoulder, seeing Copperhead. Not bad, girly, Copperhead said with a smirk before dashing forward. Naruto jumped in front of her too close to line her, but she bent back and used her hands to keep from falling down. She quickly stood up and jumped to him and wrapped her arms and legs around him and squeezed his neck. Supergirl growled before pulling her off of Naruto and sending her flying to another building. Supergirl caught up and hits her to the roof, knocking Copperhead out. Later they put the escapes into a truck that drove off to put them back into prison. Later Naruto walked back inside of his home before removing his coat and vest. Walking into his room, he removed his pants and went under the covers, where Diana moved over to him and wrapped her arm around his waist. He smiled before closing his eyes and falling asleep. Naruto's dream. Naruto woke up and saw he was in a street in Kaha. What the? He asked, looking around before seeing his reflection in a window. The hell? His eyes widened, seeing his 5-year-old self in an old white t-shirt and black shorts. He suddenly heard angry shouts and saw a mob walking towards him. Why am I dreaming this? I haven't had this nightmare since I left to train, he thought before a figure appeared in front of him. He's wearing an all-blue costume with a hooded cape and a skull face. My, you have had a really crappy childhood, didn't you? I actually feel bad making you relive this, he said as Naruto glared at him. Who the hell are you? Naruto asked. The man seemed to smirk. I'm Dr. Destiny. Naruto deadpanned at him. Really? That's the best name you could come up with. Dr. Destiny disappeared as the mob closed in on Naruto. Diana's dream Wonder Woman was suddenly in the Javelin heading to the Misa. No, she whispered, seeing smoke coming from the landing. She walked out and saw several Amazons in stone before flying off to her mother. Mother, she said, going into the throne room and saw her mother frozen. You were too late, Wonder Woman. She turned to CF walking to her mother and smiled. What do you want? The key, she asked before FA looked to her mother. No, he said before using his magic to form a sledgehammer and breaking her pee at his head off. No, she screamed before F disappeared and Dr. Destiny took his place. This is it, right? Not being able to save your loved ones, to see them die before your very eyes. He disappeared as the room shook. Before putting a hand to her ear, I need help. Car's dream car in a wedding dress was walking down the aisle with her father. She blushed looking at Naruto as she stopped in front of him before looking to the priest. Before anything else could be said, the room shook and the windows broke, showing her home. Argo Krypton was just destroyed. Someone yelled, running inside as another explosion went off. Oh dear. Kara turned to her left and saw Dr. Destiny. It seems your big day is left in ruins. What a pity, he said in a mock hurt voice, holding a hand over his heart. He disappeared as lava started coming out of the ground with everyone running in a panic. Barbara, Chia's dream. Barbara was walking down the street before she suddenly transformed into her cheetah form with long claws as she heard someone yell as people started running away from her as her canines grew a little larger to be seen as a monster. She heard a voice behind her talking. Turning around, she saw Dr. Destiny with his arms crossed in front of his chest. That's your big fear. After turning into a hybrid, he finished before disappearing as people either ran from her or threw things at her. She started running into an ally where she saw Naruto in his costume. No cage, she said, running to him only to be slapped by him. She looked up with tears before seeing him pull a kunai out. It seems you're going back to your old ways, Cheetah. To think I even fell in love with you. She quickly got up and ran past him. Seeing his motorcycle, she got on and drove down the street hoping to get away from him. Naruto's dream. Naruto jumped up to a roof, blood coming down his face and arms. He was about to jump to another until a giant paw came down on the mob. Damn, I really hate this kind of power. Reminds me of what Ma tried to do. One Kurarama said with a SN. Before everything shattered and Naruto woke up in a sweat. He heard Diana mumbling, looked over to her and saw her moving and sweating. Diana, he tried to wake her up only for her to punch him off the bed. OWWW, he groaned before getting up and rubbed his jaw. He created a clone before grabbing her NDS as the clone helped her dress in a large shirt and pajama pants. He heard a hiss before running next door. Barbara, wake up. He shook her just as she slashed his chest with her claws, causing him to hiss in pain. Damn, that hurts, he cursed before hearing an engine looking out of the window. He saw the Javelin and the Batmobile land and stops in front of his house. He picked Barbara up, showing her black pants and tank top. He went out in the hall where his clone was carrying Diana and went outside. How are you not affected? Batman asked. His Batgirl ran up to Naruto and hugged him. Kurama was able to breathe. This Dr. Destiny's spell, Naruto explained. His Batgirl hugged him tighter. I thought I lost you when we couldn't wake the other's eye. She was cut off by Naruto kissing her. Realizing something, Naruto blinked and ended the kiss. Wait, the others, he asked as Batgirl nodded and explained. Yeah, we can't wake the others up. Nothing we tried has worked. Naruto quickly looked to his right where the Kent's house is. Kara may be affected as well. He dashed through the field before coming back a minute later with Kara in her blue pajamas. Flash's dream. Flash woke up in his costume before looking up to see a bedroom. But I haven't been here since. His eyes widened before dashing downstairs where a blonde-haired woman is cooking breakfast. Warning, Wally, I made your favorite. Before he could say anything, the news went off on the TV. A storm is picking up in the Antarctic. His eyes widened before dashing out and coming to where the storm is. He saw what looked like him with two other people, both in yellow costumes, one being a teen with brown hair and the other in his early 20s with short red hair, running around what looked like a tornado. No, Flash whispered as the red-haired man was hit by lightning and disappeared. Well, you have two big fears. Flash turned, seeing Dr. Destiny behind him, reliving this and going so fast that everyone else is frozen. He continued, snapping his fingers, taking them to a city where people are frozen before everything went gray. Watchtower with Naruto and Jan. Naruto watched as Hager Elle flinched in her pod as she and the others were hooked up to monitors. He heard Snapper Car on the screen showing the news of John D and his wife. In a related case, John D's wife Penny was brought to the hospital earlier tonight. Naruto looked to see Jean talking to Batman over the microphone. His whiff. "E didn't make it," he said as Naruto got up and moved to the pods with Diana and Barbara in and sat down on a chair. "I'll go with you. Kurama could help like he did for me." John's eyes closed for a second before opening with a glow, as did Naruto. "Superman's dream. I'm only doing the ending for the D. Reams from here since they stay canon." Naruto Kurama in his fox form and John walked in a destroyed metropolis. "I wonder what his fear is," Naruto asked before hearing Superman's voice. "Help me." They ran to the Daily Planet and saw a really muscular Superman with red glowing eyes. "This isn't real," John said. "Is Superman Ed around?" "I started with no power. What if I gain more?" he asked as Jean looked to him. "You'll handle it," Jean replied as Naruto stayed quiet. "Words, just words." Superman flew out with the others following behind him towards Smallville. They landed at the Kent farm and found Superman hiding in He ship that brought him to Earth in the barn. "I can help you," Jan said as Superman shook his head. "You'll get hurt." Jan shook his head as Kurama came up to No, "We're both stronger in here than any of you. Jan can help you and I can keep Dr. Destiny from attacking." Jan reached down to grab Superman. "Only or him to grab his hands. Trust me, I can take this from you." Jan puts his hands on Superman's head. After a second, light exploded from them, destroying everything and sending Naruto back away from them. He got up and saw a normal Superman helping Jean up. "Let's end this." Batman and Batgirl, the duo, was driving on a mountain road as a computer gave John's information. "I can drive if you want." "I did sleep today," Batgirl offered before Batman shook his head. Batman rubbed his eyes for a second, moving into the other lane. Batgirl screamed as a semi honked its horn. Batman swerved out of the way and into a guardrail. "You're sure you're okay?" Batgirl asked as Batman nodded. "I'm fine," he replied before driving down the road. Getting into town, Batman suddenly jerked his head and hits two trash cans. "There's a coffee shop ahead. I could get us some," Batgirl said, pointing to a coffee shop coming up on their right. Diana's dream Wonder Woman panted as she looked to see Hades holding an unconscious Naruto by the neck as the others were on the ground. "Well, what a pity. I had such high hopes for the man you fell in love with," Hades taunted before bringing Naruto down and snapped his neck. "No," Wonder Woman yelled, flying over and felt for Naruto's pulse only to find none. "Diana, it's not real." The Naruto in her arms disappeared before she felt a hand on her shoulder. She looked back to see Naruto smiling at her. "You are a strong woman, one of the strongest I know, and I know a few." She got up as Jean flew down to them and "I know you can kick his ass." Naruto finished before Dr. Destiny appeared in front of them. Kurama glared before jumping at him, causing Dr. Destiny to scream. Naruto glanced to see Wonder Woman beat Hades before another door opened up. Green Lantern's dream. John flew in to see Green Lantern about to walk in a giant Green Lantern as Dr. Destiny watched. Jan flew in front of Green Lantern and raised a hand. "Halt, you're not an extension of this. The ring chose you for a reason." Dr. Destiny attacked Jean only for Superman and the others to come in and attacked. Green Lantern flew in as Dr. Destiny laughed, catching the others in his cape. Suddenly the lantern exploded as Green Lantern flew out and punched Dr. Destiny and used his ring to capture him in a bubble. Kara's dream. Kara in a ripped dress panted as she looked at the destruction around her. "Kara, Naruto pushed her as a huge rock fell where she was standing. Naruto," she screamed, running over and tried to push the rock off. She felt the ground shake before jumping back as lava came out of the ground, bringing the rock down into it. "No," she felt arms wrap around her, making her struggle. "It's me, Kara, I'm all right." She stopped struggling before turning to see Naruto smiling at her, putting the rips and tears aside. "You really look breathtaking," he said before grunting as she hugged him hard. Flash's dream. Flash sped around looking worried before Jean and the others came in. "Guys," he said before seeing them freeze. "No, come on guys," he said as Jan spoke up slowly. "You need to look inside." York. Flash nodded before speaking up. "Yeah," and Jan didn't, representative making him sigh. Okay, calm down and thank." He took a deep breath before hearing his heartbeat slowed down. He opened his eyes and saw everyone moving again. "That worked," he said as the others came up to him. "See it?" Pays to use your head, Green Lantern said. Before they heard Hog Girl scream help, they saw a door leading to a graveyard. Before running to it, they stopped as a barrier stopped them from entering. I can get me and Naruto in, but it'll only work for us. Go on to Barbara's dream and we'll meet you there, Kura. Rama said as red chakra covered him and Naruto. Hawk Girl's dream. Hawk Girl, Naruto yelled, looking for her. Help me please. He heard her shout from a grave. He ran to it, went through several hand saints and the coffin lifted up on a slab. He opened it and Hawk Girl quickly got out and hugged him. Hey, now She's okay, I'm here, Naruto said, rubbing her back as she sobbed. Go on and wake up if you want. We just need to get Barbara out of her dream, he said as she shook her head. No, I want to get the bastard that did this, she replied before they stood up and ran into another door. Barbara's dream. Naruto saw his house in ruin as the others stood on his porch. Barbara inside, he asked as they nodded yes, but we just heard a gunshot. And John stopped as Naruto dashed inside and up to Barbara's room. He heard sniffling and opened the door. His eyes widened seeing Barbara curled up against her bed holding a gun. Him on the floor. Barb, he stopped as she lifted the gun and he saw her bloodshot eyes. Get back, she said as he lifted his arms. It's the real me, Barb, this is all a dream. She pulled the hammer back and wiped her eyes. That's what he said, she replied, looking down at the other Naruto. Right before he to stab me. Naruto slowly took off his coat, bow and quiver. I swear, Barb, I'm real. I would never hurt one of the loves of my life, he said, slowly walking over. He stopped as the gun pressed against his chest. If you think I'm fake, then pull the trigger, he finished. Staring in her eyes, she stared in his for any hints of him lying but found none. She dropped the gun and hugged him. I was so scared, she said, sobbing into his chest. I know, but you know I'll never let anything happen to you as long as I'm alive, he said before lifting her chin and kissed her. Batman and Batgirl abandoned LexCorp building. Batgirl watched as Batman fought John, who's holding a syringe with a liquid in it, before pulling out a set of bullets. She spun it around and threw it at John's feet before kicking him into a couple of crates. Batman lifted the crate to see John as unconscious with an empty syringe. Good night. Later, Barb Era woke up to see the others staring at her. Morning, beautiful, Naruto said, walking to her and kissed her. How do I know this isn't a dream, she asked as Flash sped over. I could pinch you, she deadpanned at him before speaking up. Yeah, I'm awake, she replied before hearing snoring. They looked over and saw a rare sight of Batman sleeping on a chair snoring. Nighttime, Paris, France. Diana, in a black dress with her wrist protectors, was in the back of a limo with Naruto. He's wearing an all-black suit with a shirt, tie and a mask that covered the bottom half of his face. Picture Kakashi's mask. Diana, who was looking out at the Eiffel Tower, turned to Naruto. Are you sure you need to wear the mask, she asked, making him nod. Yes, you were invited as Wonder Woman, and unless you want people to think we split up, you're cheating on me, or I am Cage. I need to wear it to hide my identity. She looked back out the window. Missing him smile beside. Do you really want to fight off the women who wouldn't be able to help themselves if they saw my handsome face? She rolled her eyes before sighing. I know the Princess of Naya is marrying someone for peace, but how can you really marry someone you don't love? Naruto brought hands together in his lap and looked down. Well, some of these arranged marriages are for peace, strengthen their family city, or for political ties. Only a small percentage do fall in love. For the ones that don't know each other for long, at least, he continued before looking out the window. It happens round the world and in my world, he finished before looking over to her. Hey, I've meant to ask you, how does your island get women? Your mother only mentioned getting ones from around other areas, like with Arisa on her being shipwrecked. She looked over to him and explained, well, it's like how I came to be. Really only with 2 women instead. She went on to explain that the Mayan custom of how most of the Amazonians got married off to each other with a partner they can be with carded and get married. Since there are no men on the island, we have a courtship ritual dealing with a nectarine seed necklace, a ND bracelet made of thrones inside of a coconut wrapped in a red, blue and gold ribbon. The necklace represents a seed for the future, the bracelet represents the danger in one's life, and the ribbon and coconut being the hope and the blessing of the goddess Athena. Naruto poured 2 glasses of wine as he continued, they aren't really married, but it's that love and marriage is a test. She took the wine and continued to see if their love will last for the 2 of them, that they must go through a series of tests to see if it will be strong enough to make it official. Only after the given set of challenge Will it be a true one? It will be pretty much be the way how an Amazon pledges herself to another. Naruto nodded before bringing the wine up and pulled his mask down. They asked the gods if they could have a child and use clay like my mother did. They would both work on her and use a little blood fro. Each of them, she finished as Naruto nodded and looked to his watch. Seems we still have a little time before the party. Would you like to see some sights later? Naruto brought her up to the Eiffel Tower and looked at the sunset. It's beautiful, Diana said, looking around the city. Yeah, but I know something. Even more beautiful. She looked up to him, and before she could ask him what, he kissed her. Later, Naruto and Diana walked up to the museum building where the party is, and up to the guard. He greeted them in French, which they returned and walked in. They looked and saw air and space artifacts on display. Before being surrounded by the other patrons in the room, they rapidly asked questions before Naruto used Kaimi body replacement technique to switch them with another. Naruto held his arm out and Diana took it in hers before looking around at the artifacts and pictures on display. I'm amazed the world men went to space, Diana said, looking at a display for Apollo 11. Yeah, in my world we just discovered flight with blimps, he said before hearing a slow song play on the speakers. What to dance, he asked, making her nod gladly. They slow danced for a moment before the glass windows on the ceiling broke and several military men roped down. They ran to a table where a young blonde-haired woman in a blue dress stood with bodyguards and pointed their guns at her. One brought a harness over and tried to put it in her. Wait, you don't have permission to approach me. One man pointed his gun at her head and smirked. Do we have it now? She sighed before letting the harness be put on her and was lifted up in the air. Damn, I'll handle the men. You go after the princess, Naruto said as Diana tore her dress just above her knees and flew after her. Naruto cracked his neck before looking at the several men around room going through hand signs. He shot wind out of his palms, creating small tornadoes around the room. Futon kamikaze wind release divine wind. The men flew back into the walls and were knocked unconscious. Naruto looked to his right and saw Diana bringing the woman down and flew up to where a helicopter was before speaking to the pilot. Later, Star's laboratory. The Diana and Audrey scenes will stay canon, so I'm skipping them. Naruto in his stealth costume waited on the roof before looking back behind him. They're not here yet, he said as Batman walked out of the shadows. You're sure you got the time? Naruto stopped as Batman just stared at him. Okay. They suddenly heard a car stop and men in gray costumes with masks ran up to the door and blasted it open with black wrist gauntlets. Naruto and Batman jumped down at the open door and waited for them. They saw the men run out, one holding a suitcase. Before attacking them, Batman used his grapple gun to take him up in the catwalk as Naruto jumped in the air and shot 2 flashbang arrows before sticking to a wall. Boom, several tanks exploded as one Mon's gauntlet hits one and another hits one of the catwalk, having it fall to him. Crap, Yuto cursed before putting his bow on his back and jumped down to save the man. He brought him up to the next floor before Batman dropped down beside him. The other two got away, Batman said before looking to the man on the floor. Diana's in Naruto's hotel room. Diana, now wearing a red black trimmed dress, walked inside, took her high heels off and stiffened as she heard a voice. Keeping late hours, aren't you? She turned to see Naruto and Batman near the windows. I could say the same to you, she replied, putting her hands on her hip. Batman just stared at her before continuing. Earlier today we captured a man. Part of a special forces group stealing chips used on weapons at Star Labs among other places. Diana raised an eyebrow at him, so she asked as Naruto picked up after Batman. He's a Kaznian officer. Her eyes widened at that. You can't think Audrey? She stopped as Naruto raised a hand. No, but what about her father and uncle? Hell, even someone in the army might go behind her back to keep the country fighting in their civil war, he replied as she looked down. I guess it couldn't hurt to ask her. Naruto looked out the window before replying, you can, but if she is behind this she'll lie to you, so we'll keep an eye on her. Later, Diana and Audrey won. Diana in a black dress waited for Audrey as she changed clothes behind a changing wall. I'm going to be late for my engagement party, Audrey said, throwing the clothes she was wearing over Audrey. I'm worried about you, we need to talk, Diana said worriedly as Audrey EY waved a hand in the air. Relax, Diana, I'm going to marry the old stiff and churn out a litter of royal heirs. There's been a series of thefts. We connected one of them to your government, Diana replied as Audrey in a white dress came out. You couldn't believe my father would be connected, Diana shrugged. Before replying, I don't know your father. Audrey just stared at her for a moment. Well, I do, and he wouldn't. Diana smiled at her for a moment. Okay, I just needed to hear it from you. Audrey smiled before taking her by the wrist. Come meet my ball and chain to be. As they walked to the room, Diana saw several people mingling before coming up to a man in a white suit and black hair. He turned around and Diana's eyes widened. Vandal Savage, she asked in disbelief as Audrey looked confused. Do you have any idea who he is, Diana? Audrey said as Diana continued. Vandal Savage is a Nazi war criminal, and Vandal Sue N raised a hand, interrupted her. My grandfather. She just raised an eyebrow at him. What, she asked as he continued. Vandal Savage 3, a pleasure to meet you. He raised a hand which she just ignored. Diana, don't be rude, Audrey said as Vandal looked to her. It's understandable. My grandfather was an evil man. Anna just glared at him. He wasn't a man, he was a monster. Vandal nodded at her. I've dedicated my life's work doing good to help restore my family's lost honor. Diana narrowed her eyes at him. The resemblance is uncanny. He nodded and replied, our genes are rather insistent. He looked to Audrey and kissed her cheek. I have a call I need to make, he said before walking outside. I'm sorry, Audrey, I didn't mean to insult him. Audrey glared up at her and spoke, didn't you? Diana aside before walking outside and saw Vandal talking on a cell phone. Just how insistent are those genes, Mr. Savage? Vandal looked back to her and raised an eyebrow, meaning, he asked as she walked up. Your grandfather was a munitions maker. He nodded before replying. Ahead of his time. She crossed her arms before narrowing her eyes. I hope that doesn't run in the family. He shook his head before walking up to a fountain. It doesn't. He is my interest is in peaceful exploration of space, he explained, crossing his arms behind his back. I'm not sure I believe you, Mr. Savage, she said as he turned to face her, and I'm not sure I care. What are you saying? I'm the original Savage. I'm 100 years old, he asked as she walked up to him. Whoever you are, I'm not going to let you hurt Audrey. He smiled at her before replying, I love her. I've never met a woman who do things for me like she can. She just stared at him for a second. I don't want to hear this. They heard a voice behind them and saw Naruto in his costume walk out of the shadows. I mean, really, it in the bedroom. He rolled his eyes at him. I meant getting into the royal family. Why are you here? He asked as Naruto walked over. There's evidence that someone from Naya is behind some of the thefts going on here. Even if Audrey isn't a part of it, someone could frame her or attack her. I'm just keeping an eye on her. Suddenly a man in a military uniform with a white voice box on his neck and black hair walked up. General Cox, Wonder Woman was just leaving. Could you escort her out? She looked back to him before walking away. I can find my way out, she replied, flying away as Naruto disappeared in a black flash. Later, in Diana's hotel room. Sat down as he and Wonder Woman 2 was talking to Batman over their earpieces. I'm still not sure it's him, she said before Batman spoke up, but if Savage is still alive it would all fit, she sighed before continuing, I don't know, I had Jan pull his records up. It looks like it all checks out. After a moment Batman spoke up, papers can be forged. Well, whether he or Savage or not, he makes me nervous. Naruto stood up as Batman replied, he should look at what we've got so far. He went over the evidence they've gathered about the thefts and the satellite. Cosney is putting up good cover to get around the weapons embargo they're supposed to have, she said before Batman brought up the news audio about Audrey's father having a stroke. That's convenient. Wonder Woman flew out of the window as Naruto jumped across the rooftops. Don't wait up for me, Naruto yelled as Wonder Woman nodded and flew ahead. Later, Naruto and Batman came up to a field and saw a hole in the roof of a barn. Going in, they saw an unconscious Wonder Woman walking over. Naruto shook her awake as Batman pulled out a canteen of water. Oh, what did I miss? She asked, taking a drink. Plenty. Your friend Audrey moved the wedding. It's happening now like Hades. It is, she said, getting up and was about to fly until Batman spoke up. You go there uninvited, you'll be breaking international law. Wonder Woman scoffed before flying up. Vandal will be lucky if that's all I break you coming. She flew out of sight as Bat Man and Naruto jumped in the bad jet to follow. As they followed, her jets started attacking them. Wonder Woman broke the wings and glass, having the pilots parachute out of them as Batman shot lasers at the others. Batman, look out, Naruto yelled as a missile hits the bad jet and Naruto pulled Batman with him, flashing to the ground. They fought men on the ground before a tank flew past them and into the castle. Later, Naruto and Batman snuck in the vents and found Audrey talking with Wonder Woman in a cell chained to the wall. Batman had soon hacked the security cameras and was looking at the guards as Audrey left before paging the tower. We have a problem. Wonder Woman's been captured, he said before hearing Flash speak up. Need backup, because he stopped as Naruto and Batman looked to each other when they heard an alarm set off on the other end watchtower. Flash dashed over to Jean, who was looking at a monitor. Hey, what's wrong? I've got bats on the other. He stopped. His Green Lantern flew in and saw Vandal Savage on the screen. He started talking about using a space station he secretly turned into a rail gun that'll use debris and asteroids to plunge into the Earth for better picture. Look at Mado. F honor, did you get all that? Flash asked into his earpiece. Most of it. We'll be fine. Taking out that weapon is top priority. That man replied back as the others left to the Javelin and flew to the Kasnian space station. This will also stay canon. Naro and Batman Castle Naya, Naruto and several clones choked out the guards guarding Wonder Woman as Batman picked the lock and freed her. Come on, Audrey would know where the war room. As they ran through the halls and eventually came across Audrey's, who's pounding on the door. They opened it and Audrey looked at them with wide eyes. Wonder Woman, we need your help, Wonder Woman said as Audrey looked down. I can't even help myself. She stopped as Wonder Woman puts a hand on her shoulder. You're the queen, you have to take control of the situation. Audrey looked up to her. How? She asked as Naruto looked to her. By showing us where Savage is. Later they ran into the war room where Vandal was standing beside General Cox. Naruto quickly dashed around taking care of the officers and scientists around the room. He created a clone for each, and here Ice and Flying Thunder got all of them out. Naruto suddenly heard a screech before looking back to see Wonder Woman fighting General Cox, who was using a cry on her. She grabbed him by the neck and punched him into a chair. Unconscious Batman, did you get the satellite offline? He yelled before dashing over to him. No, but I moved the target, he replied as the monitor on the computer had an eye on it. Later, Naruto, Wonder Woman, Man and Audrey walked on the ruins of the castle. I'm sorry, Audrey, Wonder Woman said as Audrey looked around. I never liked the palace anyway, too drafty, but maybe this is a new start for Naya. Before they could continue, a disfigured Vandal came out of the ground screaming as his bones healed and slowly went back into place. You sure can pick them, Wonder Woman said as Audrey pointed at Vandal. Arrest that thing as the guards took him away with Audrey following. Wonder Woman looked to Naruto. We never did finish our dance. Naruto blinked before looking to her. We just stopped a madman from taking over world, and you just remembered our dance. She nodded before taking his hand and leading him away as Batman disappeared in a shadow Gotham Batcave. Naruto watched the news report from earlier as he static Batman and Robin stopped time code from sending criminals to the future to escape their crimes. NKS to Batman Cage and their young friends, the reporter said. A Robin scoffed. He's a young kid with black hair, domino mask, in a red costume with an R over his left chest, black trunks, boots, gloves, and a black-yellow cape and yellow belt. Young friends, I don't even have a name now, he asked as Static was moving time cod's chair over. Get me my toolkit, boy, Wonder Batman said looking over his shoulder. Older, and you be careful with that, Batman said to Static pointing to the chair. What's the harm? It's unplugged, remember? Static asked as Robin brought the toolkit over, and it has an internal power source. A member, he said before taking the kit from Robin. His Static puts the chair down. He thank you would be nice, Robin said as Batman worked on the chair. Learned science from Nobel winners, martial arts from kung fu masters, and manners from crocodiles, Robin said as Naro walked over. He's a different person when he puts that mask on, Naruto said looking at Batman. His Static looked to Robin. Hune's just training you for anything. I think you're lucky. Stopped as Batman screamed looking over. They saw green electricity surrounding him. Hold on, Static yelled before running over. No, don't, Batman yelled, only for STA. Tick to shoot electricity at the chair. Suddenly the energy wrapped around him and Naruto before sucking them through a portal. Where did they go? Robin asked as Batman looked to him. Not where. When with Naruto, a Nar yelled, falling from a ceiling onto a couch. He looked around to see he's in Wayne Mansion. Oh good, he said with a sigh. I was waiting for you. Naruto turned to see an elderly Bruce with a black Doberman beside him. Bruce, wow, you got old, he said, making Bruce narrow his eyes at him. Oh come on, you've gave me that glare so many times it practically doesn't affect me anymore. They suddenly heard fighting and looked to see a doorway beside a grandfather clock. They walked in and saw the Beckett cave with a section holding Bruce's bat suit, both of Dick's costumes, Tim's and Barbara's. Hold it, Bruce yelled as Static was fighting someone in a full black bodysuit with longer ears, red bat symbol and C. Elver pouches acting like a belt. Look up, Batman Beyond, Batman of the future, for a better picture. One, there's no time for this, I need all three of you. The Batman looked over to Bruce and pointed to Static. Who are these two? This one says he's Beyonce. Naruto raised an eyebrow at him. Oh, I thought she wou. LDB timeless, he said sarcastically, walking over to them. This is Cage and Static. That man's eyes widened at that before looking at the young heroes, but they're old guys. Naruto narrowed his eyes at him. And I bet my future self better looking than you, kid. Static looked back to him. What do you mean, kid? Naruto walked over to Batman and crossed his arms. I mean exactly that. He can disguise his voice, but his force is only my age. I meant me, not my future self. I thought Tim or Dick would have taken over for you, Bruce. Why, as a kid, Batman and not Nightwing or something? Bruce walked past him to the compute. Our kid, something spiked in him when you said that something must have happened when we traveled here, Naruto heard Kurama say in his head, making Naruto sigh. Bruce went on to explain that they had traveled 40 years into the future and how Cobra, a cult of snake worshippers, kidnapped a hero there, Ader as Viper. He brought up a picture of a woman in her later 20s with dark brown hair and slitted eyes. To she looks familiar, Naruto said before Bruce spoke up. She's Copperhead's daughter. Naruto blinked for a couple of seconds. Wait, what? He asked, making Bruce pull up information. Yes, Copperhead gained leadership of the cult around 5 years after you got sucked here. Funny thing, Viper has a thing for your sons like her mother did for you. My sons? Bruce nodded before continuing. Yes, don't worry, you're not her father, although Copperhead tried one time after you got caught. We found you too intimate with you tied up. He brought up a picture of a man with black hair and goatee. It's the canon leader. For this episode we captured one of the generals and they captured a hero and wants to trade for him. Seems like a good plan, Static said, making Bruce punch his keyboard. Good, negotiating with criminals? No, a plan to rescue him and keep the general. Static shrugged before speaking. Come on, how good can this guy be if he's stupid enough to get caught by a bunch of snake people? He's you, Virgil, Bruce said, making the electric hero's eyes widen. Later, Naruto and Static and Batman events will be canon until around the end of the episode chapter. Naruto dropped down on a roof before turning on his earpiece. So what am I looking for in one of Cobra's abandoned buildings? He asked before Bruce replied a second later. Anything that'll lead us to Static or Static not yours? Naruto nodded, going through a broken window and saw a dust-covered room. What about that informant you sent Batman in? Static to go see. I don't trust him. Naruto rolled his eyes at that. I see, some things never change. He looked around and threw some papers before speaking up. So where's the rest of the Bat Clan? After a moment Bruce sighed. Dick KS, a trainer over in Jump City. Around when he was in his mid-20s he was fighting Joker, got shot and lost his left eye. He still has a bad limb and some events caused Tim, Barbara and I too. Santo talking until an incident a year ago. It's rough but it's getting there. 3 Naruto nodded before speaking. Oka. Why, what's Barbara doing now? I thought she would still be helping you. He heard Bruce sigh before answering. Like I said, the event that left us on bad terms and I didn't want anyone working with me, so I made her give up being bad girl. She eventually became an officer and over time she took over her father's position as his commissioner. She's married. Naruto rolled his eyes at that. I know we were going to be married. Bruce paused before speaking. She didn't marry you, Naruto gripped the table he was leaning on, heartbreaking part of it off. What do you mean? We're talking about getting married and How in my time something happened that caused you two to drift apart right after the event where I made her quit. She got pregnant with your child, but a little over a month later she tried to stop a mugging and got cut. Shima scaried the child. You two did your best to get past it. You two actually broke up right before she made commissioner. Sometime later she ended up marrying Sam Young, who works in the district attorney's office. For wow, that's a lot to take in, Naruto said before taking a breath and picked up a file. Reading it, his eyes widened before jumping out the building. Bruce, I got it, I know where your static is at. Later the flying that mobile landed beside Nar, who pointed to a big vent. There's our way in. Walking over, Nar added chakra to his arms and pulled the vent off and walked inside. After walking for a moment they came across vent showing a man in a stasis field. Plan, Naruto asked as Batman looked towards him. Go down there and fight real hard. Naruto shrugged before stomping on the vent and dropped down. Sounds like a plan, he said before seeing Viper. Oh, what's this, a mini clone of the original? She asked, pulling out a gun. Naruto threw a tri-pronged kunai near her, flashed over and kid her as Batman flew down with red wings connected to his suit under his arms. He threw a sleeping gas down, making her cough. Come on, my mother was a poison expert. I'm pretty much immune to stuff like this, she said before Naro hit her with a Renan spiraling sphere. She hit a wall, knocking her out as several followers came in. Suddenly Naruto felt rumbling before a large human snake hybrid came from the upper floor and hissed at him. Oh come on, really, do I just attract giant snakes? I wouldn't be surprised if in another universe I had to fight a giant snake, Naruto yelled, pulling his bow out and shot several exploding arrows at him. Seeing the arrows aren't working, Naruto quiver bottom swiveled before bringing an arrow out, shooting it at the snake. Green gas exploded as the snake bit the arrow before falling down. Well, at least I didn't get eaten this time, he said, folding his bow and put it on his back. Suddenly a big ball of electricity hits the followers and Naruto looked to see the older static. He still has dreadlocks but now had a goatee, gold domino mask, belt and gold trimmed boots and gloves. He's wearing a black full body suit with a blue lightning design covering it all over with his lighting in a circle logo. As Naruto walked over, he and Static was covered in green energy. Must be going home, Naruto said as he and Static left through a portal that caved. Present time, Naruto and Static dropped beside Time Code's chair. Welcome back, Batman said, smiling before they heard gear. Yes, I knew I could fix it. Static got up and quickly explained what he saw, and Batman raised a hand, stopping him. I'd rather not know, he said, making Static shrug as Static was chatting with Gear and Robin. Naruto pulled Batman over to the side. Look, I'm not going to tell you anything to change the futu only to open up with Dick, Tim and Barbara, he said, glancing to Robin. I don't know what you're going to do intentionally or unintentionally, but something causes them to hate you for close to 30 years. Barbara's apartment. Naruto flashed in to see Barbara sleeping at her desk with the lamp on. Figured that she exhausted herself with a load of paperwork and essay she has to take care of for both work and classes. He walked over, turned the lamp off and picked her up bridal style. He smiled when she snuggled against his chest before putting her under the covers and took her shirt and pants off. He kissed her forehead and looked down at her for a moment. I swear, Barbara, I'll do everything in my power to stop that future from happening, he thought before standing up and flashing away. Back cave. 40 years just after Naruto and Static left, Bruce hung up on Batman after he told them Naruto and Static left. So I guess this was when I came here. Bruce looked back to see Naruto with two bangs framing his face in his stealth costume with a tattered ends on his coat. His hair had a little gray on the sides of his head and in some streaks in his hair. Yes, only this time I told him what happened with Barbara. Raw, since you never asked when you went. Naruto sighed, walking over. Why can he stopped as new memories hits them. Damn, I see I was able to keep Barbara from getting hurt, he said, rubbing his head. Yeah, but the incident with Tim still happened, Bruce commented before an alarm went off. Terry jokers are attacking the bank. He looked over to Naruto, who's looking at the screen. How are the girls, he asked, making Naruto shrug. They're doing well, they're in Konoha for a vacation. They continued making small talk until Terry spoke up for advice. Gotham said nighttime. Two men are in a semi-TR with a trailer holding Seve Raw boxes are traveling on the interstate as a black car sped up to them. A man in the car dialed the truck inside. Hey, slow down, we don't need the cops on our tail, he said before a shadow came over their lights. What was that? The driver of the car asked before seeing a glider shaped like bat wings. It's Batman, the other man said as a figure dropped on the truck showing a woman. She's wearing a silver full-body costume with red gloves and bat logo with a gold belt. She pulled a red batarang and cuts the tarp from one box and used it to open it up, showing laser rifles. She suddenly ducked as a bullet hit the box before hiding behind it. She threw her batarang at the shooter in the car before picking up a rifle and shot it, having a crash. She used it to shoot the other boxes on the end before turning around and saw another man wearing sunglasses and a hat holding a gun. He shot at her, forcing her to OD, and used the rifle to knock him into another box. The man growled before picking up another rifle and aimed it at her. She kicked it, having it shoot in the air and barely misses the bad jet. She grabbed the rifle before falling back and kicked the man off the trailer, having him grab the edge as the Y got on a bridge. She went to the last box before looking back and saw the man get back up. They exchanged punches before she finally threw him over her shoulder and into the river below. The woman picked the rifle up and pressed a button on her belt, having her flyer come back. She got on it and shot He truck, having the trailer explode and the semi drive off the bridge. The Badjet shot two grappling hooks, catching the truck as the woman flew beside it. Batman and Robin looked to her as she flew away before Robin looked to Batman. Haven't seen her around the cave, he said. His Batman stayed quiet as he took the truck away. Barbara's apartment next morning. Finally, spring break is here at last, Barbara said, stretching on her couch wearing a black short-sleeve shirt, gray skirt and black high heels. She reached for her lipstick and applied it on before looking to see Naruto wash the dishes at the sink. Hey, want to go out tonight, she asked, but he didn't answer. She sighed before looking back to the TV. Something's up with him, he hasn't said more than a couple of words to me, she thought before looking back to Naruto. Naruto, is everything all right, she asked as he looked over and gave a small smile. Yes, ba. RBARA, I'm fine, Barbara sighed, knowing he was lying. Naruto, I know you're lying, what's wrong? Naruto stopped washing the dishes before turning around. Okay, there's some. He stopped as his earpiece went off. Cage here. Okay, I'll be right over, he said before looking to Barbara, who had her arms crossed under her chest. That man needs my help with something. He walked over and gave her a quick kiss. Love you, he said, making her sigh before smiling. Love you too. As he left, she picked up her phone. Beaks Brick, a BR evening. Overweight man with gray-white hair in a suit was playing with a deck of cards in his rig. HT hand looked to his right and saw a limo come up. A bald African American man walked out and took off his sunglasses before the other man spoke up. Come on, he's waiting. They walked inside and past the workers working on toys and figurines. They waked up to a bunch of boxes with a card reader on the wall. The first man flicked his wrist, having a card come out of his sleeves before sliding it on the reader. The boxes moved to the left, revealing an elevator. They got in and went down. As the boxes went back in place, as they went down a flow, they saw hundreds of weapons being made. As a short, chubby ma in a suit, top hat and monocle was using a gun umbrella to shoot a target of Batman. They walked up to him as he looked to the African American man. Mr. Dukin, I hear we had an unpropitious setback. Dukin raised an eyebrow. If you mean we got hit, then yeah, the man nodded before picking another umbrella. And how could this have happened, he asked, making Dwayne shrug. I don't know yet. No one but us knew the shipment was leaving last night. Well, someone did, the man said, shooting a small missile at the target. A Batwoman, the other man asked as Dwayne nodded. That's what my man said. Thorne, the short man, growled. E4, throwing his hands in the air. Batman, Batgirl, Batwoman, what is it about this city? The water. I've doubled the workforce of the other sites. No way she'll get to them, Dwayne said as the man snorted. Forgive me if I'm not so sanguine, he went on to explain, on getting $1 billion to make the WIPO NS for Kaznia and had already spent most of it. We can't afford to lose any more, he yelled before looking back at Duan. I want the rest out of the city by the end of the week. Take care of this back, clone. You're supposed to be our muscle, Mr. Dukin. Start flexing. He finished walking away, making Dukin clank. his fist and leave. Later, Duan's penthouse. A young African-American woman walked inside with two muscular men holding bags as Dukan was talking on the phone. Daddy, he looked to her as he puts a hand over the phone. And where were you, Kathy? Kathy sighed as the men left. Shopping. Don't worry, I had your goons with me, she said before talking about her day. You should tell me when you leave, he said as Kathy sighed. How is your day? Who's on the phone? She asked, making him stare. Business, she sighed before kissing his cheek and leaving. Bruce, Alfred, Naruto and Tim Naruto looked out of the car's window as Alfred D drove and Bruce turned off the news about Batwoman. Suddenly Bruce's phone rang. Looking to it and answered it. Hello, Barbara. Naruto stiffened as he talked to her. Naruto. He looked to see Naruto shake his head. No, he's not with me. I think he's at the office. I'll be sure to let him know you called. I'm not one to pry, but what's with you and Barbara? Bruce asked as Naruto sighed. I got some bad news after traveling to the future and I don't know how to tell her about it. Bruce narrowed his eyes before speaking. Don't tell her you're stepping in something you don't want to. Nar looked to him and sighed. It's some thing that caused us to break up. I want to change it. Bruce, I love her, he finished as they made it. Dwayne Industries. He and Naruto got out as Alfred drove off with Tim. Later, Naruto stood near the door as a short blonde-haired woman was talking to Bruce and the shareholders in discussing this new alloy. I brought some charts to demonstrate the care and precision we bring to our work at Waytech, she said, pointing to a chart with a pointer. So as you can see, the alloy tensile malleability is remarkably high. She stopped as she knocked one of the charts down. She caught it and fixed it back. Given IT's density and homeomorphic structure, she kept knocking the charts down as she was explaining before foregoing them and picked up a small metal spiked ball and a small pointer. See this chunk of metal? I can program it to change shape, she explained, touching it, having changed into a flower gem butterfly. Why, and the Statue of Liberty. As a result, every other person in the room was in awe and could possibly think of what uses it can bring once developed further. Later, GCPD rooftop gym waited with Bullock and a woman with short brown hair wearing a black shirt and jeans as Cage and Batman came down to What is it, Commissioner? Batman asked as the woman brought up a cart of destroyed rifles. We collected the remains of the contraband. That man picked one up as Cage scanned it. Wow, this is some serious stuff, Naruto said as the woman spoke up. Capable of destroying a tank at 500 yards. I measured the IPS. They looked to her as Jim explained. Sonya, Alana Bullock's new partner. Naruto smiled before whispering, won't be for long. After working with him for a few days, she continued to explain each of the weapons before Batman spoke up. Who's behind it? Bullock was playing with keys that had a penguin's face on it. Spoke up the driver. Ain't talking, but I got some leads. Can't say anything definite right now. Batman took the keys before handing them back. We'll get back to you later. Beaks Bricka BR. So Penguin owns this place? Robin asked, jumping out of the Batmobile as Naruto parked beside them along with Ain and Thorn. Batman replied, looking at the building. What do they make here? Robin asked as Batman looked to him. Toys, decorations, weapons of mass destruction. They suddenly heard a gunshot before running to the roof and saw Batwoman fighting a group of men. They dropped down and helped her fight them. You shouldn't be here, Batwoman said as Batman looked to her. After hitting one guy away, I could say the same to you. She shook her head before saying she set a bomb on the bottom floor in the weapons room. Naruto looked down, turned on his glasses and saw a bomb near some gas containers. Crap, she did, he yelled as the bomb went off and fire came up through an elevator. Where is she? Robin asked as the ceiling came down on them. Up there, Batman said, pointing to a window. They shot their grapple guns up as Naruto shot a Huron flying thunder god arrow up and flashed towards its location. They went to the XT building and watched as fire came out of the windows. They were making arms for Cosnia. They looked back to see Batwoman jumping down to them, something I'm sure the State Department would frown upon. This was their weapons plant, she explained, looking at the building as it exploded. Hard to prove that now, Batman said, narrowing his eyes. Doesn't matter, they were done here, but I've just begun. Naruto crossed his arms before speaking up. Okay, but we could have arrested them with evidence on any computer in that building. She walked away as Batman stopped her. Wait, who are you? Why are you doing this? Owly removed his hand before looking at him. You're the great detective, you figure it out. She had attacked him with a series of punches before landing a kick on him and jumped off the building and on her glider. Batman followed after her as Naruto sighed. Well, I guess I'll follow him when he lands aft. RA moment Batman called him yeah really you need my help to follow her okay next morning Naruto groaned as he laid down on a rooftop ledge after 5 long hours of watching Kathy shop man and I thought Kara and Barbara could shop but this is ridiculous suddenly his phone vibrated he picked it and looked to the screen Barbara G. He looked down sadly before hitting ignore after a moment it vibrated again come on Barbara I'm not ready to talk he stopped as he saw Car K he hits the answer button and brought the phone up hello dear he stopped as she yelled at him don't dear me Barbara just see. Called me and said you're ignoring her Naruto jerked back and fell off the ledge he grabbed it and got back up look I found out something when I traveled to the future about us and I've been trying to think of a way to tell her what information could do this she stopped as Naruto sighed she had a miscar. Riage when she was pregnant with our first child it caused us to break up after a few years after telling everything Bruce spoke up through their earpiece I got roped into staying with Kathy you can go later back cave Naruto watched as Bruce went through pictures of Kathy in multiple events busy eye. And she Alfred asked walking down with clothes she could be Batwoman everything in these pictures says she has the strengths Naruto said before seeing Bruce look intently at the pictures reminds me of Andrea he said his Bruce stiffened and Naruto walked away as Tim was target practicing who Naruto sighed before glancing towards Bruce for a moment back when Bruce was in college he was finishing up his plans of becoming Batman he truly fell in love with a woman and vice versa who like Kathy had a father who was involved in crime they eventually gotten engaged after dating for so long and Bruce decided to abandon his plans of becoming a vigilante but her father got in trouble with the mob he was forced to leave the country and forced her to break up with him before he could say anything they heard an angry female speak up Naruto Uzumaki Naruto flinch before looking back to see an angry Bara standing at the top of the stairs leading out she stomped down as Naruto started to sweat I'm a patient woman but I'm tired of you avoiding me you're taking me out tonight no exception to my clear she asked as she got close to him why yes honey she nodded before turning around and walked past a scared looking Tim hello Tim she said walking out before Naruto followed I seen him face aliens dark side and even Joker I've never seen him that scared Tim said as Bruce picked up a gold locket and opened it for a second wait until you tick off your girlfriend Tim later Iceberg Lounge Naruto in his suit was dancing with Barbara in a black dress as Cher sings Beta Never Naruto looked to Barbara as she was looking down why Naruto looked confused at her for a moment why what he asked as she looked up to him why are you distant in yourself for me Nar sighed as the song stopped they walked to their table and Nar saw Bruce with Kathy in a white dress and shoulder-length gloves look I've been trying to tell you something and I couldn't find a way to tell you she looked down having her hair shadow her eyes you're breaking up with me aren't you Naruto looked shocked at that what no Barbara N. Oh I'm not I love you it's just I have some information about as I need to tell yo he stopped his Batwoman came through the wall eyes widening Naruto looked back and saw Kathy near the bathroom damn I thought she was Batwoman he said before looking to Barbara what to help or there too many cameras for you to change I forgot to bring my costume she said as Naruto took off behind a toss table he came out in his costume and saw Penguin attack Batwoman before jumping over and knocked him out he took care of several men that had attacked him as Batwoman left Batman dropped down and looked to see Kathy before his eyes widened later subway Sonya waited by a support before taking out a battering souvenir she looked to see Batman and Naruto walk out of the shadows I found it at the Iceberg LNGE can you sign it make it a collector's item she said as Batman took it and puts it in his belt what do you find out only that Kathy Dwayne can't be Batwoman Batman gave her a small metal wire I found it in the Penguin's office I think Batwoman used it on him I kept a piece he explained handing it to her you know taking evidence from the scene of a crime as she stopped as they stared at her probably won't lose you any sleep she finished pocketing the metal cage and Batman started walking away before Sonya spoke up wait you saved my life once she went on to explain how Batman saved her 9 years ago from arsonists under RERT Thorn it's why became a cop I just wanted you to know she said as a try N went by making her look at it. When she looked back, she saw they were both gone. Abandoned factory. Bowman dropped down inside a window and saw Penguin Dwayne and RERT talking to Copperhead and a tall muscular man lifting a big weight. He's wearing a sleeveless bodysuit and a mask with a tube connected to a device on his arm. They talked about them helping against her and the others heroes before talking about using a cruise ship to do their trade in international waters. She ducked out and flew a few miles away. She pressed a button on her flyer and flew down into an open drainage. She flew inside a tunnel and stopped where a bunch of equipment is set up. I've got everything where it's happening. Ban and Copperhead's agenda. She stopped as Rocky walked out of the shadows. He knows, she said as Batman looked to her as she explained. Batman and Naruto paid her a visit. I told you we should have create a new identity and not spun it off of Batman, she finished as another voice spoke up. She's right. They looked to see Kathy walking out of the shadows. Look how fast he caught on to me. So he thought it was you 2 days ago. Tomorrow we'll make him think it's someone else, Bomb said as they walked closer. Trust me, if he really had any idea what's going on, she continued, taking her mask off, reviling Sonia. I would know, she explained. They leaving tonight before changing out of her costume as Kathy got in another one later. GCPD rooftop. Sonia was watching the ship past in the river as Naruto and Batman dropped down Batman cage. She asked as Batman walked up, you know Kathy Dwayne, you both took art classes together. She sketched your face. It was years ago, but it's you. He threw a sketchbook down showing Sonia with long hair standing beside another woman you also know, Rocky Ballantyne, roommate at the same university. She looked up to him and raised an eyebrow. Busy bat, she said as Naruto walked up. You three had a bone to pick with either Penguin or RERT, so Kathy paid for your equipment and you take turns to keep suspicion off of each other before anything else can be said. Sonia's phone rung and she answered. Naruto discreetly turned his glasses on and heard Rocky on the other end. There's no distress call and Kathy's not answering her radio. I think she's in trouble. Sonia turned around and looked to them sadly. Later, cruise ship. Batman and Naruto looked inside to see Kathy unmasked with the others interrogating her as Bane held her father. Oh man, Copperhead, really, why do I attract the dangerous women? Naruto asked before taking 3 arrows and shot them down. They exploded in a flash of light and smoke, having Batman drop down and take Kathy out as everyone but Naruto and Copperhead ran out. Hello, handsome, she said as her tongue slithered out. Naruto shuddered before getting into a stance. He ran towards her and kicked her in the stomach. She jumped back, jumped over Naruto, turned around and dropped, kicked him into a box. He got out, threw a punch at her and she wrapped her arms around his neck. Now be a good boy and I'll reward you, she whispered in his ear and started squeezing. He tried getting out only for her to pull his arm away and twist it. Sudden an explosion hits them, sending them flying back into the wall. Naruto got up and saw Copperhead was unconscious. He sighed before picking her up and jumped across the room as more explosions went off. As he got to the upper deck, he felt the boat stop and pieces of it to fall. He saw Bane fall down through a hole as fire came up to them. Crap, what else can go wrong? He asked before seeing Rocky in her costume without a mask on fly towards on her bat flyer. GCPD. The next day, Sonia was packing up her desk as 2 shadows came over her. For what it's worth, she looked up to see Naruto and Batman at her desk. The city's losing a damn good cop, she sighed as she put some books down. Condoning vigilantes is one thing, Gordon draws the line at employing them. I'm just lucky the DA is looking away. Someday you're going to have to tell me how you do it. Keep from crossing that line. When I put on that mask I never saw. All I see is just one big blur, she said, crossing her arms as they stared at her. Maybe we don't take it as personally as you, Shida panned at Batman before speaking. I doubt that, she said, putting her badge away. What are you going to do now? Naruto asked, crossing his arms. Don't know, somewhere where capes and masks aren't in fashion. Don't tell me you dropped by to wish me luck. Batman shook his head and handed her an envelope. No evidence proving Dr. Ballantyne's fiancé innocence. I thought it would be better if it came from you. Thank you. I don't know how, she trailed off, seeing only Naruto standing in front of her. What, she asked as he smiled. I've got a proposition for you. What? To help out the League, at least until we can make you A member she looked to him in shock. I would have also asked the others, but Rocky only wanted her fiancé free and Kathy wanted vengeance for her mother. I know you did for your parents' store, but I doubted another force will hire you because I know Bullock will tell your identity to them out of spite. NCE he's not a fan of Batman. What do you say? Sonia looked down for a moment before looking up. Okay, on one condition, I become your partner. Naruto shrugged. Okay, I always wanted a sidekick, no partner. I kind of want to keep the costume, Sonia said, crossing her arms. Yell like I sidekick. Her eyebrow TW itches before huffing. How is it someone like you got a girlfriend friend let alone for? He grinned at her before replying, I'm drop dead sexy. She snorted at him as she picked up her box. I doubt does. She stopped as he picked up a remote, pressed a button, and the camera is shut down before lifting his hood and took off his glasses. You're not battle looking, she said, walking past him. I've got an apartment close to here I use for when I help Batman. I'll meet you there, he said before fixing his hood and walked out with her, giving her a piece of paper. Oh, but the way Kathy drew a woman beside you who KS really familiar. Do you know her? Yes, she's Andrea Beaumont. She taught me how to fight, she answering, making Naruto freeze and looked to her. Barbara apartment. Nar flashed in to see Barbara watching TV. Barbara, she looked back to him as he took off his coat. I've got to tell you something. Sitting down, he told her about their future he learned from when he traveled with Static. A Miss Carr marriage, she asked, holding her stomach. He nodded. Yes, we broke up 5 years later and you married someone named Sam Young. Really not, Dick, she asked as he shrugged. I know you three had a falling out with Bruce. Maybe you drifted apart with him and Tim also. He sat down beside her and wrapped an arm around her shoulder. I know you stop a mugging several weeks after you get pregnant. Just throw down a Huron flying thunder god Kanai when you come up to one and I'll help. A few days later with Bruce, so we're breaking up. Cat Hi asked as Bruce looked down. Yes, but not because of you being Batwoman. You just remind me of my ex-fiancé, right down to having your father on the wrong side of the law, Bruce replied before Kathy leaned up to kiss his cheek. Okay, I understand.